Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Minute. It's your daily podcast in which we analyze, we scrutinize, and we celebrate The Last Jedi, one escapist minute at a time. I'm Alex Robinson from alexrobinson.fun.
I'm Pete the Retailer from PeteTheRetailer.com.
I'm Connor Ratliff. I pretend to be George Lucas on the George Lucas Talk Show.
I'm Patrick Cotnoir. I am the producer of the George Lucas Talk Show.
You pretend to be a producer on the George Lucas Talk Show. And I'm Griffin Newman. I pretend to be Watto on the George Lucas Talk Show. So happy I was able to clear out my schedule and come back for this one.
Yes,
yeah, really, you really saved our skins.
Suddenly there were some cancellations and you had an opening in your schedule.
It was very, look, it was magical, and I don't like to look a gift horse in the mouth. I'm also realizing here, I messed up my backgrounds because for 36 several days ago, I think I had Poe and Holdo, and then I was Luke and Leia, and then I was Kylo and Rey, and now I'm actually syncing up. But I guess I should have been Luke on the first minute. Then
Do you want to start over?
No, I think we should take it. But I just feel like this is the first episode where I'm actually going to be in the pocket.
All right.
Okay, good. So tomorrow you should have something. Assuming you come back tomorrow, it should be something totally unrelated. This will be the only day that you're actually
right.
Yeah.
It'll be
let's talk
the master code breaker tomorrow.
The Norbit. Well, we're here to talk about minute 39 of The Last Jedi. Minute 39 starts off with Vice Admiral Holdo telling Poe to go to his post. And it ends a minute later with Finn wanting to go, but telling Rosie, hello.
Rosie.
Really, Rosie.
Really.
Rosie Tico. Every movie should start with Finn abandoning his post and splitting from his whatever commitment he has just made.
And joining
I mean,
with somebody else who gives him a different name.
Yeah.
I actually think an important part of Star Wars movies, and this was one of the things that I thought was missing from the prequels, is having characters who don't want to be part of a Star Wars adventure.
Agreed.
I think it is one of the
Star Wars
vital ingredients. Well, because that's why we love Han Solo. Han Solo does not want to be in a Star Wars adventure. He wants to go pay off his debt to Jabba the Hutt, and he keeps getting sucked back in. He's a reluctant participant, and he's also someone who's constantly calling out, like, this is stupid, I don't want to do this. And I think it's really helpful to help sell the reality of Star Wars, to have characters who are like, I don't want to do this is crazy. And I love it. I love when there's characters who want nothing more than to, like, get the heck out of the Star Wars adventure that they end up having to be part of.
Connor has a character in the prequels. Do you want to talk about that you think
I always forget
filled that part?
I always think back to the Phantom Menace. What was the name of it was
Captain Panaka.
Captain Panaka. This is the character. He's already structurally built into the story because he's negative through the whole thing. He keeps saying, like, no, let's not do this. This is a bad idea. I advise against this. I always thought if Vince Vaughn had played that part, or someone who could have that energy, because you also need someone who's like, no, let's not do this. And someone could be like, Jar Jar, you need to stop talking right now. Like, right now. You needed somebody to be able to take the wind out of everybody. It's sort of like to deflate the Star Wars that's happening around you by I think that's the great thing about Han Solo and anyone who fills the Han Solo role of, I don't like this. This is dumb. I don't want to be part of this, because it sort of makes it feel real. It sort of makes it like, well, this guy is against all this stuff. It sort of makes you more convinced that, like, it's really happening, because, like, this guy's taking issue with it. Like, he's trying to get out of it.
I was going to say, I feel like when people talk about, like, relatability with characters, right, in movies, and especially because I feel like Star Wars is often thrown out as this ideal of, like, oh, Luke is such a perfect audience surrogate protagonist. We all can align ourselves with, like, a kid who dreams of a better life, you know? Finn, for me, is, like, how I want a character to be designed in a movie like this, where I'm just like, oh, this guy's completely scared and overwhelmed by being this prominent a character in this universe, you know? Like, to Connor's point, Han Solo is like, I'm too cool to be in a Star Wars movie. I'm doing my own thing. I don't need to be roped into your, like, fairy tale hero's journey. Finn is just like, I got dragged into this thing. It was a lot. I almost died. I am very happy to just not be in a Star Wars movie anymore. I don't need to be a primary character in this. And I find that very relatable because I would be terrified in the exact same position as him. I like that his first instinct upon waking up is get away from all of this.
Right. And going back to Luke too, Luke was just like, hey, I tried all this, I failed. Like, I don't want to be a part of the Star Wars anymore. I'm just gonna sit on this island. Like this.
It seems stressful. I just feel like people often talk about like, oh, a character, when they talk about character relatability, it's usually in terms of like people being perfect. You know, like just so morally reasoned and heroic and doing the awesome thing in every moment. I can't relate to a character who fits into that role that quickly, you know? I want to see a character fail and struggle and figure out through accident where they fit into the larger tapestry.
I also feel like with the Finn character, one of the things I really liked, particularly in the first two movies in the sequel trilogy, is the way that, like, you know, he has his moment where he picks up the lightsaber, and the assumption is, like, he's gonna, you know, in a lot of movies, you'd expect that to be the moment when he thrives. And instead, he does about as well with the lightsaber as you could expect a normal person to do. I think that part where, like, Kylo... Yeah, like the part where Kylo just rips into him, and you just feel it. Like, and he's in a coma until the next movie because he takes such a... Like, to me, it's like... It's the same way that Harrison Ford, whether he's Han Solo or Indiana Jones, you put him through the ringer and it makes you feel like, oh boy, like this is like, it makes it more believable. Like when you have characters like that who really like, they try their best and it is not enough, you know?
Mm-hmm. And especially because Boyega, like his star-making performance is Attack the Block. That's where JJ, like, you know, spots him to be in Star Wars. And in that movie, for 98% of the running time, he is playing the most, like, unknowable, steely, badass teenager you've ever seen. And the sort of non-twist twist of that movie is when at the end you sort of reveal greater depths of vulnerability, you know, to this guy who has seemed so kind of classical, kind of cowboy badass the whole time. I just think it shows his range as an actor. I know he's voiced a lot of frustration with where this character went, but I do think that more falls into the lack of big picture planning and the back and forth baton between JJ and Ryan. But I do think taken on their own, I like his arc in Force Awakens. I like his arc in Last Jedi. And I think he's just totally left out to dry in Rise of Skywalker, largely because you're losing that element of this is kind of a normal guy suddenly placed into one of the primary roles. In Rise of Skywalker, he's just now sort of a Star Wars hero, you know?
Right. Well, there's an interesting, like, his journey to that, and then there's a little, there's a subtle thing here that I didn't notice until we picked it apart just now, that, like, he doesn't really have, he's just like not necessarily out for himself, but more or less kind of like just, you know, he just knows that he wants to get away from the First Order in The Force Awakens. And then here he just wants to find his friend, and he's kind of, but in doing so, he's now at this point kind of cloaked in other people's stories. Literally, he's wearing Poe's jacket and Leia's bracelet, and he's just like, oh, he still doesn't fully know who he is. And here he is just kind of cloaked in other people's ideas, kind of still trying to kind of locate himself, which is where I think it builds up to that. And then, like, it might not seem satisfying because then at the end he's just like, oh, what he is a Star Wars hero, and it's not as interesting as him finding himself. But
I also just think it doesn't feel like he particularly finds himself in any unique way in Rise of Skywalker. It just feels like, oh, now the journey's complete and he's this and that, and there's sort of all these hanging threads. But to your point, Pete, like, you know, here he is, right? He's come out of a coma. He's wearing the pieces of other Star Wars characters, and he meets Rose, who makes him realize for the first time other people are viewing him this way,
Right.
that he has a legacy and a reputation, which is a thing that is clearly just completely foreign to him. Like, he enters into this scene being scared primarily about being caught, and then is sort of just completely sideswiped by the notion of, like, the Finn? There's, like, an expectation of who I am?
That's the next minute, though.
I'm sorry.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
We don't want to spoil this.
Well, yeah. So before we get there, we have to meet Rose, and we meet Rose. Meet Rose.
Crying Meet Rose.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, like, to be introduced to the world. Like, the first thing that they see of you, you know, and for a you know, relatively unknown actress before this, to just suddenly, all right, the first thing we see of you, you're going to be kind of like ugly crying, like, and it's just like, oh, okay, wow, that's bold. And then
I mean, she really had done, like, almost nothing before this.
Yeah.
You know, she was
Comedy Bang Bang was like her big thing.
Right. That was like her biggest credit, was being in one episode of the IFC Comedy Bang Bang TV show, and she was like an LA improviser and comedian. I mean, and like the three of us know people who auditioned for this part as well, and that was very much the area they were looking in. It felt like he really wanted someone who had comedy chops inherently in their back pocket, and was looking for sort of offbeat people who would not be in the regular kind of short lists for a lead role in a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I like we knew several people who were going in for these like top secret auditions, like, and a lot of it we'd find out later on, like once it had been announced and everything. But the thing that I kept thinking about is like how weird it would be if anyone that we knew had been suddenly put into the world of these movies. And even before all of it all kind of became a problem in terms of like bad fan reactions to the character and the performer, it occurred to me, knowing people who were auditioning for this, it occurred to me that like what a big thing it is to suddenly be thrown into this machinery, knowing that like the rest of your life, this job is going to be a thing that you're like attached to, for better or for worse. So like it is, before I'd ever even seen the character, I'd already sort of gone through the mental gymnastics of imagining like, oh, if someone I know had gotten this part, then I wouldn't just, it would change the way you know them to a certain extent. You know, that like, and that's true of anybody in a Star Wars movie, that like it becomes one of the, unless you're already, you know, like Benicio del Toro is someone that I almost have to sometimes remember, oh yeah, he's in Last Jedi, because I have so many other associations with him before The Last Jedi that it's almost like, oh yeah, he's in this too.
But those are the exceptions to the rule, because even
Yes.
you're like, Alec Guinness was like one of the most brilliant screen actors of all time, and yet his career, now decades out, is sort of dominated by Obi-Wan in a lot of ways, in
Yes.
much of the public's mind.
I think everyone who is in Star Wars, that will be the thing they are remembered for. I mean, they might be remembered for some other things like Indiana Jones, but for the most part, Star Wars is such a huge pop cultural thing that, you know, Peter Cushing, same thing, did 1,000 horror movies, and now he's only known for being Grand Moff Tarkin.
Although
I was going to say, like, Harrison Ford is arguably the biggest exception, and it's still, like, kind of balancing on a knife's edge whether his lasting legacy as Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones or Han Solo. And essentially he had to do another massive culture-defining franchise with George Lucas to even potentially push Star Wars at a first position on his obit.
I think the only other main character performer in its special circumstances would be Frank Oz.
right.
But even then, it's like you know, you do the mental test of like, when this person dies, which credit do they lead with first, right? In their obituary?
Probably still going to be Star Wars.
That's
for
what I
Oz.
was going to say.
I
With
know,
Oz,
I
it's
think-
a coin
I
toss.
think-
It's a coin toss. I really think so.
Miss Piggy. I think Miss Piggy's going to dominate the headlines, and I think
We'll see.
Yoda's going to be a second
Maybe.
credit.
We'll see. I'll
'Cause I
just
think-
say this. Can I put money on the table right now?
Let's put the money on the table.
Money.
Yes.
When
See?
Frank
Put it
Oz-
on the
Exchanging money.
table.
When Frank Oz passes, and I hope it does not happen for decades upon decades.
Ever.
But
Yeah.
Long time.
I hope it never happens. I hope he is the first
no, we
immortal.
want everyone eventually. We don't want him to live to be 20,000
Okay,
years.
fair enough, Alex.
Eventually, it'll just be him. All the rest of us will be dead, and it'll be like Frank
When-
Oz
when-
on a planet by
Don't
himself.
condemn him to that.
Wait,
Please,
okay,
Griffin.
fair enough. When Frank Oz is ready to go, and not a moment sooner,
All right.
in the Oscar in memoriam, they are
Mm.
absolutely going to play a Yoda clip over a Muppet clip.
Yeah.
And part
I
of that
think
is the emotional import of everything that Yoda ever said. But that is the clip they're going to give him.
I'm going to
Well,
be.
it doesn't
if
matter
they-
if it's the Oscars or the Emmys, because if it's the Emmys, you're going to have Muppets.
I mean, it's going to be Muppets, but I
or-
feel
I
like
think-
yes.
Oh, you
I think
guys
if they
don't
know-
think?
I think
you
if
guys
they-
don't think? You don't think it'll be a Yoda clip from Star Wars Rebels that they'll show at the Emmys?
I think if they
He
know
doesn't
what
do the
they're
voice on
doing,
Rebels, does he?
if they know what they're doing when
he
they
does.
edit that montage, they pull it straight from the Busby Berkeley sequence in Great Muppet Caper. I think that's the
Well.
clip.
Obviously, in my heart, that'll be the clip.
That's if they know what they're doing, though.
Yeah, if they know what they're doing, you're only going to win this if they don't know what they're doing.
And I think I've never lost money betting that the Oscars don't know what they're doing.
I'm assuming
Have you guys?
it's going to be the wasn't he the guy at the impound lot or the Lost Property Desk or
and
something like
Blues
that?
Brothers.
Sure, Blues Brothers.
Blues
yeah.
Brothers. Yeah.
I
those
just
would be
feel
the-
like they love. I mean, it was why like Carrie Fisher got the final moment of the in memoriam, because if you're a character who says like a line with great gravitas and import,
Mm.
and they can put that in the in memoriam montage and make it feel like, oh, they're saying this from beyond the grave. It's their final message to us. May the force be with you. It's like that's always going to win the day, you know?
Although
No.
backing it up to
There is
Harrison
a-
Ford,
there is another.
I do have to say that I was once at a movie with a bunch of friends and friends of friends, and so somebody was having a conversation. They're like, "No, wait, Pete'll know. Pete, was Harrison Ford ever in a movie like Star Wars?" And I was like, "You mean besides Star Wars?" And they're like, "He was in Star Wars?" And I was like, "Wait a minute. Now,
Wow.
good. This is before the new the sequel trilogy, but still, I was like." What's going on? Right? What bubble are you
Yeah.
living in? And
That is truly wild.
yeah,
You're like, get out of here, jock. Don't
like they
know that.
were fully aware of him as a cultural phenomenon, but they were like, well, he was never in a movie like Star Wars. And I was like,
Yeah.
Wow. He wasn't in a movie like Star Wars.
No.
When's he
From a
gonna?
certain point
When's
of
he gonna? When's he gonna get his big break?
yeah,
His defining role.
Kelly Marie Tran, we were talking about her career moves. Has anyone seen the show Sorry for Your Loss?
No,
Oh, is that
okay.
that's
Heard
the
of it
Elizabeth
before.
Olsen one, right?
this
Yeah,
this
it
is one of
stars
those things.
WandaVision herself.
Right, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
yeah, you got one of the main actors from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the main actors from Star Wars. It's a show that did like 2 seasons on Facebook. It fundamentally doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yet I'm friends with many professional TV critics, and all of them swear that it's very good.
Yeah.
And it
It's
just feels
weird.
like it was probably a victim of, like, oh, that was the 18 months when Facebook decided maybe we should make our own shows before abandoning ship, before
Yeah.
they realized no one wants to
It's-
watch TV on Facebook.
It was
but I've
the
heard
yeah.
it's good and that both of them are very good on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Facebook's Yahoo screen moment.
Exactly
Right.
what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was that show and Nicole Byer were like the 18 months of like, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah.
I killed
Yeah.
the conversation by mentioning.
I remember.
no. Every once in a while,
No.
I feel like we're gonna get these shows that filter out from a dead
Mhm.
streaming service. And it's like, oh, remember there was a thing that was a
I remember
Quibbly.
there was
it
a moment.
CISO
There was
original.
a moment. Oh, Patrick's a former CISO employee.
Yeah.
Too soon.
Oh,
Too
sorry.
soon.
Oh.
Yeah. There was a moment where I remember people talking about how Facebook making shows was going to be the game changer,
Yeah.
and that this was where people were going to watch shows from now on. And I remember thinking, well, I'm not, because it was right at the moment where Facebook was sort of shifting away from feeling like an interface that felt really nice to feeling like this sort of garbage pile that's just constantly flowing.
Mhm.
And yeah, is there a place to watch that show now?
I don't know.
How do you find it?
No.
I don't
It
know.
might
but
still
yeah,
be on Facebook, maybe.
she did. I mean, that was her follow-up to this. Then she
Yeah.
does The Rise of Skywalker. And then she was in 2 major animated films in the last 6 months. But certainly she has sort of gone quiet because of the understandable sort of
Nightmare hellscape.
right of her being thrust into this. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a
Which is-
big fan. I
Yeah.
just find her very interesting and compelling as an actor, and it once again gets to the, like, for me, the Star Wars expansion thing of, like, I just want to see different energy. You know, I want new species. I want actors with different approaches. I can see Alex winding up here, but am I wrong? Am I misreading your body language? Okay.
Oh no, I was just looking at my notes to see
Oh,
what else,
thank
if I
God.
had anything else
Thank
to
God.
say. No.
But I
I
also
wasn't even listening.
It's another moment for me that I feel like for some people the bullseye is on her from this very moment, and for me, I'm on board at this moment, which is to introduce a character weeping to themselves in a Star Wars movie. It's such an odd moment. It's so unlike anything we've seen in terms of the weird intimacy of it and the vulnerability of it. You know, I feel like when people are crying in Star Wars movies, it's either very operatic, Anakin, you're breaking my heart, you know? It's a primal scream. It's a dry cry. It's a primal scream into the void. To just have a low-level employee hanging out in, like, a basement of a ship, just kind of quietly weeping to themselves. It's
And
much like...
And it's a wet cry. It's a wet cry.
It's a wet cry. Much like Finn being scared, Rose being sad, I go, well, these are the 2 characters I get. I am also scared and sad all of the time. I can't imagine how much more scared and sad I would be in a Star Wars movie.
It has been really nice seeing her on this press tour for Raya recently. They just did a red carpet, like a digital red carpet for it a few days ago. And there's a video going around where all of the other Disney princesses and a few other actors from Disney animated movies are, like, welcoming her to the family. And it truly feels so nice because I'm like, she just seems like a nice, funny, chill, cool person that I want to be friends with. And I'm glad that people are embracing that now and trying to get her to come back into the mainstream because I think she deserves it. And I think she's fun. And I think if you give her good parts, she will put out solid performances. And if you give her stuff to do, you give her stuff to do. And that was one of the biggest bummers of Rise of Skywalker, which, I don't want to get into that because that's a whole, thing to fall down into. But, like, I wanted her to do stuff, and it was so sad that she just didn't do anything. And it was, I don't know, it made me, it really bummed me out.
She got Jar Jarred.
She did.
She got Jar Jarred really, really hard. And it also just feels like...
Hard.
Like, I understand the Holdo frustrations so much more than I understand the Rose frustrations. I don't understand the vitriol this character, and by extension, this actor got. I understand if you dislike the plot line. Yeah. I understand if you dislike the larger machinations of the film. But to, like, have this level of contempt for this character has always been very, very odd to me. And I feel like it's always delivered with this energy of why are they shoving this character down our throats? There's this sense of resentment from the people who don't like Rose where they're like, why are you telling me to like this character? There's this weird, as if that's not what every movie is doing anytime it introduces any character. And not that we need to wade into this too heavily, but there's this whole incredibly bad faith argument of Rose is forced diversity, and people always say, well, I like diversity when it's actually organic and it's really a character and it's not just trying to prove a point, but this, they're trying to shove it down our throat. It is just worth mentioning that of the multiple people that Connor, Patrick, and I know who auditioned and got far along in the casting process for Rose, the majority of them were Caucasian. This was not a role that was written on paper to specifically be a spot for diversity, you know? I think this was very much a movie in which they were casting very openly, and I just think that must have also just been a complete, like, excuse my language, but mind for her to have everyone attacking her on this level of, like, this is some weird affirmative action thing, when that was not really part of the design of the character at all.
It's also interesting that for a lot of people who were aggressively disappointed in this movie, it was sort of interesting to me to see the way they were. What they wanted from Luke was, we want the old Luke, who was this wide-eyed, optimistic, like hero figure. And instead he's like grown old and bitter with the disappointments of his life. And then a lot of the same people also didn't like this other character who was new to the story and was kind of coming in from a place of, in some ways, like not the same as Luke. Obviously there's different characteristics, different beats, but it's also like when we meet Luke, what's one of the first things that happens is his family gets killed tragically, and then he has to get thrown into this adventure that he's not prepared for. And that's kind of the Rose character in this. So in some ways, the people who were looking to Luke for one thing and having their expectations not met were then also looking at this new character and it's almost like one guy is no longer a pizza delivery person. And you're like yelling, like, why isn't this guy delivering me a pizza? And then someone else is at the door with a new pizza. And they're like, get out of here. Why are you ringing my doorbell?
I didn't order a pizza. Who invited you?
You're not the pizza guy.
Yeah. And it's
Icy wiener.
And it's interesting because they're looking. A lot of those people, I think, are looking to Luke, expecting to see themselves, and some of them not able to see that the thing they're looking for is in this other character.
Right.
And I think in some cases it's because they're Luke is what I'm used to. Like, I've grown up with Luke. I've done this, or whatever, and. It's so fascinating to me that I think there are people that if they could let go of some of their expectations for what they want a Star Wars movie to be, then this is a movie that like, I'm in it for the surprises and for the things that subvert what I necessarily am expecting from a Star Wars movie. And I think that a lot of what people wanted from Luke, you can find in the Rose character.
But let's also point out that people love to clown on Luke in Episode 4, right? That the whininess, the over-earnest sort of delivery of everything. He's a very, very sincere character. He becomes steelier in Empire and Jedi, and so then people get to go, well, but Luke becomes a badass. Luke becomes a badass. And Rose is sort of set up in a similar way. She's a very hard on her sleeve, wide-eyed, let's go do it, I want to have an adventure, let me at him kind of character, which I do think to some people, they naturally have a revulsion to any character that is, and any performer, I would say, that is that unconcerned with seeming cool. And I find it refreshing. I like that Rose is not badass, that she is earnest, that she's sincere, that she's passionate.
When we meet her, she's weeping, and that's it. She's not like that. Yeah.
But once again, some
circle.
people just immediately must, look at a character crying on screen and go, ugh, what's this? and I just, I can't imagine being that turned off by emotions. Especially what has always been a very emotional series, I mean, Star Wars is more space opera than it is sci-fi, and defined by the fact that it is emotional, character-based storytelling.
Chronologically by release, who's the first Star Wars character we see openly weeping?
It's got to be Anakin.
Well, by release order.
By release.
Release. So starting with 4, 5,
release
6.
order.
Luke is kind of crying in the Falcon after. I can't believe he's gone, but he's not really.
Not really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You never have him cry this much, and then I feel like you have the sort of guttural scream cry at the Vader reveal. But is that really crying in the same way?
Is it the Rancor's handler? Is he the first one to really lay into it?
Malakili is definitely weeping.
Yeah.
It might be.
Yeah. Is he the first blubber face?
I love that.
I think some of Chewbacca's wailing and the Cloud City Carbon Freeze is crying.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell with Chewbacca whether it's a wet cry or a dry cry because he's so absorbent.
Yeah. I also feel like with Chewbacca, is he always crying or is he never crying?
He's like the Hulk. He's always crying.
Right.
That's my secret. I'm always crying.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you come back later and it's around his eyes are all curly because he got his fur wet. So like, what happened to you? Like, no.
I don't want to talk about
Curly eyes.
It's like this thing for me where it's like if my introduction to a character is them crying, I lean forward and I go,
Aw.
okay, interesting. You know, like I can relate to this more than I can relate to Poe, more than I can relate to Rey.
What are some of your favorite screen cries?
Number one for me, unquestionably, is Holly Hunter in broadcast news. I think that's the best on-screen crying, both in volume, both in quantity and quality. I think that's incredible. I think, I mean, people have done the super cut, but Julianne Moore as an actor certainly has an incredible
she's always crying.
body of cries, you know?
Yeah.
And a real good range of cries.
I'm gonna go with Elmer Fudd in both a Wild Hair, 1940s A Wild Hair, and also in What's Opera Doc.
Yeah.
When he killed the Wabbit. I think that's some good crying, good screen crying.
Yeah, there's a real pathos there.
Well, our own Star Wars' own Natalie Portman, I think, is famous. She cries in almost every movie she's in.
Yeah.
So,
and I've always been a big
she's good at it.
defender of Anakin, You're Breaking My Heart. I think that's a tall order, and I think she kind of plays that scene the best that anyone could, as written.
Right.
It's hard to imagine anyone else even doing it, let alone pulling it off.
I think there's an
Except Keira Knightley,
embarrassing...
of course.
Right, but I think, yes, well, and we wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but I think there's an embarrassing quality to the, like, you know, it's a teenage girl having her heart broken for the first time. I know not literally, but I feel like that's how Natalie Portman is playing it. The inconsolable teenager who's like, you don't understand. This was the love of my life. I'll never be happy ever again. Anakin, You're breaking my heart.
Yeah.
I did Google,
but it's another moment that people mock.
I did Google image crying in movies just to like refresh my brain to see if any more popped up, and multiple ones are Padme crying.
Oh,
Which I think it's funny that it's like multiple of the top hits are Padme crying.
How many are Elmer Fudd?
There's zero Elmer Fudd. Zero Fudd.
I was going to go with
put animated characters crying.
All right, I'll try it.
I was going to go with Nipsey Russell as the Tin Man in The Wiz.
Oh my
sure.
God! I mean,
good.
you're talking about one of my 10 favorite movies of all time. That's way up there for me. Nipsey Russell's performance a key part of that, and that's real. That's a different type of crying than we're used to seeing. I mean, he cries so much he rusts himself.
Yeah.
I'm getting no Fudd. I'm getting no Looney Tunes even. I'm
no
scrolling. No Fudd, no tunes. Yeah.
You know
sorry.
what they say, no Fudd, no tunes.
Well, do we have anything else for minute 39 before we have more Rosie and Finn action tomorrow?
I just wanted to point out, I know, Patrick is going to hate it, but I wanted to point out the cool control panel to get into the escape pod.
I love that whole escape bay, that whole pod, the whole bay there.
I have
escape pods.
I have
really
a pod bay note for minute 40.
All right.
Oh, wow. Teaser for everybody.
If I come back.
Oh, man. The negotiations are tough.
I'm definitely coming back. I in fact demand it. But I do think this whole set is great. This is just a really...
Save it.
Okay. What? It's already in this minute. I just want to say that much.
Yeah.
It's a good set.
It's a great set.
Good set.
Well, you know what else is good? You guys, when you call our telephone hotline, 8-Day Greedo, and leaves your comments about some thoughts you have on the Last Jedi. Maybe the first time you saw it, or some of your favorite, not toys. Don't bring up the toys. They hate it when we talk about the toys, so don't bring that up. But your favorite fan theories. Do you like the Lanthiers? How do you guys say the name of the animal they ride around at Canto Bight?
Isn't it Fathiers?
Fathiers?
Yeah.
Nope.
Okay.
Nobody tell that.
That's what I thought, but I also never put myself out there enough to actually try pronouncing it on microphone.
Yeah.
Well, I did. So I feel like
Fathiers.
Yeah.
Go around. Everyone go around. Griffin,
Fathiers.
how do you...
Wait, how's it spelled?
F-A-T-H
Like father.
with an I. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Father
like
with an I between the H and the E.
Seems like it would be a tool that makes fathers. It's a fathier.
It's a father.
Yeah.
Or or a person who makes fathers.
Yeah. Well, I got a name for that guy. God.
Oh no.
Whoa.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
that's what I call the father maker. God.
No.
So call our telephone hotline, 8-Day Greedo. Give us your thoughts on God, and maybe we'll use it on the next Star Wars
Star Wars.
Minute.